Hello all my Kenvians and welcome to a new episode of Catch-Up Vlogs with Once Upon a Time. Today I'm going to be watching That Still Small Voice, the 5th episode of the first season of Once Upon a Time. And yeah, I apologize for forgetting the name of Jiminy Cricket's Land Without Magic name. It is Archie, not, what did I say, Charlie? Or something like that? I don't know, maybe I was just thinking of my dog Charlie. I have no idea. But yes, Archie Hops is who the episode will be focusing on mostly today. So let's get right into it. And I have fast forwarded past the recap portion, so get to see the little intro graphic and what it is they have hidden in the woods right away. So let's see what it is. I'm not sure, a turning wheel, I'm not sure what that is exactly, but it's related to Rumplestiltskin. It's spinning gold, or whatever. A spindle? I think that's what it's called. A spindle. Could be wrong, but I think that's right. Good God! Those freaking puppets! Alright, so one thing I want to say right off the bat, because I was told about this after I put out the original Discovering Once Upon a Time for this episode. The piece there, and actually, I guess that maybe I spaced out, I don't know, but when it falls down there, what it is, the proof that Henry could have found was Snow White's glass coffin. And I guess I just never put it together in my mind as far as the design goes, but that's what it was, and that's what could have been found. But obviously that is not the case. Now, whether or not they do end up finding it in the future, that would require them to go back down to the mine, so it's unlikely, but who knows? I don't know how this show works past episode 9. So, let's get right into it and talk about a little bit about That Still Small Voice, which, again, focused primarily on Jiminy Cricket / Archie Bunker, Archie Hops. And it's a really good episode. Now, I realize I didn't, or at least I don't recall many moments of me sort of reacting or anything that I would really include in the vlog here, but it's a really good, solid episode, and it touches on a lot of strong themes, in my opinion, or at least a few. It feels like a lot in my head at the moment, but one thing especially, and this is something that, well, you know what? I'm just going to try and talk about all of it in general. Jiminy's parents. Hoo boy. Well, first of all, they have not what I would call a quote of the episode, but one of the major quotes from this episode, and that is, "Good is another word for weak." And the reason why that stands out so much is there's a lot of people who really do think that way. They truly believe that good is another word for weak. Kind of like how people will mistake a good-natured person, a kind person, as weak, and they will prey upon that person because that person might be a bit naive. That person could be too young, too inexperienced to realize that they're being preyed upon. So yeah, I really like that they incorporated that. Which brings me to sort of like the overall, not necessarily theme, but just the big focus of Jiminy's parents. And that is this reflection of toxic, abusive family. Now, from what was portrayed, when I say abusive, I don't mean they beat him ever. That's outside the scope of the story. But from childhood up until he was adult, I don't think it's established how old he is at that point. But he became conditioned. He still tried to rebel against them in his own way, but it kept getting pulled in through their toxicity, their abusiveness, that forces that attachment to his family. It's like they've conditioned him so much over those years that he truly thinks that despite how horrible they are, despite how much he wants to get away, how much he wants to be a good person, they pull him back in because of that. They're his family. He can't abandon them. They've made him believe that truly they matter more than his happiness. And that is something so prevalent and true in the real world. I've known people who go through that. Not necessarily with family, but I have had that experience with people that I once thought were close to me, that I once thought truly cared about me. But no, they... Sorry. Almost got into a bit of a rant there, but that's one of the biggest things from this episode. And it ties into, I think, Regina and her relationship with Henry. Now, on one hand, yes, I do think that Regina does truly love Henry, and she wants the best for him. But she is, at times, whether she realizes it or not, in this episode she definitely was, and what she forced Archie to do, but psychologically abusive toward Henry. And I mean, we could take into account, first of all, how he believes, all the stories to be true. And her just outright dismissing it. For her own gain, obviously. It's like, she does remember what happened before. So she knows that he's right, and she's trying to steer that away. But even before that time, it's like Henry could have noticed, and I actually think I got some of this information from a comment, so I apologize for not remembering who it was, but it's like Henry has grown up his whole life. He's grown up and seeing kids that were his age that he went to school with, and until recently they did not age. No one aged. He's 10 years old, and in all that time, that means all the students that he went to school with stayed the same age, stayed in the same grade, presumably. In the previous episode, Ashley, all that time, she would have been pregnant. So in the span of what's based on that story, she was pregnant at the end there when the curse took place. So she was still pregnant. She was pregnant for 28 years after they were brought to our world, the world without magic. So Henry's seeing these things. It's like, even if he doesn't know who they are, like, he didn't really know Ashley, but he's been around. He's seen these people, and he's seen everything stay the same. And to have you be told that it's all a delusion from his mother, you can't say that's not psychological abuse, especially since she's the one that knows all of it. She knows he's right. And then Archie, that moment where he gave in to what Regina wanted him to do, while he never outright would say that he believed what Henry was telling him, he was a good therapist. He was working with Henry to sort out what reality is, what reality was and is. Unbeknownst to Archie, Henry is right, obviously, but at the same time, he was doing his job. And, there's a lot of things that I wrote down here. I might end up just not getting to them because I just feel this whole deal is so important. One of the most powerful things, and I can't remember if Jill has watched this episode or not. She might have watched the whole show, I can't remember. But I'm really interested to know what she thinks of Archie as a therapist in this world, because my wife is a therapist. Because while it may not be entirely accurate to what a therapist does or what they would do, so I can't help but feel that, especially at the end there, when Archie stands up to Regina and tells her what he's going to do and why he's going to do it, because it's the right thing to do, no matter what she wants him to do, no matter how she wants him to fix Henry. That was one of the most powerful moments in the entire show up to this point, just being completely honest. I don't remember if I said something like that in the previous video. Again, there'll be a link in the description down below, or, up in the corner at the end of the video, of the original Discovering Once Upon a Time. But, yeah, it was just a truly powerful moment. And it brought his rating up to 2 hearts for me. Because I actually did write it down, or drew it. It's like, the 2 hearts. 2 poorly drawn hearts, but 2 hearts nonetheless. So yeah, that's just the whole theme of this episode. It continues the story of what's going on, obviously, but just how it showed that toxic environment, and despite how hopeful Jiminy was as a child, how over years that can get beat out of you, basically. Again, when I say beat, not necessarily physically, but mentally and emotionally and psychologically. I really appreciate the way they did that episode. It was beautifully done. It was wonderfully done. I do wonder whether or not we'll get to see any of Jiminy Cricket meeting with Geppetto as a child, and maybe as Geppetto grows. But I did like that connection there. I don't know if it was one that I pointed out back in the past, but the fact that Jiminy and Geppetto were old-time friends, and that's reflected in how Archie and Martin, I think is his name. I think that's what they said his name was in the episode, Martin. How they're friends now. And, even Emma assumed that, he was Archie's dad. But no, so they're longtime friends. Soulmate friends, you might say. Because they're still bound together through friendship, through that relationship, despite the fact that, obviously, their memories were wiped away because of the curse. So, yeah, let me see, was there anything else really of notice that I wanted to point out after watching it? Well, first of all, Mary, Margaret, and David. I really like how the story of what's happening with them evolves through this episode. And even though it's unfortunate, I did like the fact that they ended the episode the way they did, with her putting in her resignation as a volunteer, because she realizes there's something there. David obviously feels something there, but in a world where, despite the fact that they actually are Snow White and James / Prince Charming, in a real world perspective, it's not okay to come between a husband and a wife. And she doesn't want to be the person that does that, because despite how much David is into her, he has a loving wife. Or, again, because of the show, seems to have a loving wife. So yeah, I liked how they ended the episode, and I like how they evolved that. And I don't fully remember what happens from here on out as far as that story goes, but I'm definitely looking forward to getting back into it. And then finally, Henry's nonverbal acting. And this ties in a little bit more. I guess to jump back to the therapy aspect, one of the things that gets mistaken that I've noticed is, like, people think that therapy is meant to just fix you. It is meant to help people. It is, and that's the biggest thing. It is meant to help people get through difficult things. It is meant to help people learn how to cope with the situations they're dealt. It is meant to help people, period. But too many people mistake therapy for being meant to fix things. Like Regina wants Archie to fix Henry, to fix the situation. And that's not how it works in the show or in real life. And when it comes to Archie, confronting Henry and saying what he does, saying that these delusions are dangerous, and essentially calling Henry crazy. The kid who plays Henry, this was some of his absolute best acting, in my opinion. And he didn't even say a word. I mean, he's young, he still has a way to go, and he definitely is improving as the show has gone along, even in just these few episodes. But the nonverbal cue he gives when he's sitting there and he hears what Archie is saying to him, it's like it goes from expectancy to troubled to just an utter look of betrayal. And in just a span of a few seconds, Henry's face goes from betrayal and sadness to just almost a look of rage for just a split second. And then it caves to the betrayal and just overwhelming sadness as he gets up and walks away. And again, it's like, I'm not an actor, but I can tell when there's some good acting going on. And the kid just did an amazing job in that scene. Again, that is his best acting in the show to date, in my opinion. So yeah, and again, I am definitely looking forward to seeing him improve even more as time goes on. There were a few other things I wrote down, including the appearance of Rumplestiltskin, but I'm not going to cover that for now because it's just extra. The stuff that I talked about here I feel like is the most important things regarding this episode, the stuff that jumped out to me the most. So I'm interested to hear what you all have to say about this episode. If you have also seen my original Discovering Once Upon a Time video, once again, link in the description down below and up here at the end of the video. Let me know your thoughts on what I had to say back then versus now. I'm just kind of curious because, again, to this point, I haven't watched any of my old videos. Even the recaps, so I'm not sure exactly what I was thinking back then. All of this is just, my thoughts now. Some of it may still be the same, I'm sure, but I can only assume that some things, at least of what I've pointed out or what I've said, has changed. But yeah, This is fun. I am looking forward to the next episode, and let's see what that next episode is going to be. The Shepherd. I think I remember this one. I'm not going to say what it is. Actually, I will. I think this is the one where we learn more about Prince Charming specifically. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's right. Alright. Okay, so everyone, thank you so much for being here for this episode of Catch-Up Vlogs for Once Upon a Time. I'm looking forward to the next episode, The Shepherd, and I hope you all are too. And until next time, leave your thoughts in the comments down below. See you in the next video.